Muna, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Lucy.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good.
I feel like
all things considered. I feel like that's kind of my thing that I say these days.
Yeah.
All things considered.
We joked when we first came in here that we're trying to be more honest about that question.
Right.
Yeah, and things have been. I know you and I have been connecting a lot, so we know that things have been really rough and difficult to navigate. And so I guess I really just want to start there and just see like how you're doing, how has life been for you, how has work been for you, and
yeah. I mean, honestly, it's it's good. It is. It's good. I do just think that there's when you get to my age, you've gone through these like, I guess, points in time of the ups and the downs. And so I feel like at least in what I think where we are in the country and in my profession right now, it's a little bit of a down. A down in terms of how I feel about it. But I think that there's a big plus in that just the number of my colleagues that have stepped up to push to preserve civil rights and immigrant rights, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
So even though it's a sort of a down in the environment generally, but I feel like, and in the profession, normally I say that, what I do is a feel-good job. When people contact me like, oh, do you do divorce? I'm like, God, that would be miserable, you know? There's nobody that's happy.
Yeah.
That when they're going through the divorce process. But in immigration, I don't do deportation and removal, right? So it's family-based, employment-based, naturalization. That's feel good. You're bringing, workers to the U.S., bringing family members to the U.S., it's feel good. So right now, it's not as feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting framing because I think right now in particular, people are viewing immigration law as something that's feeling very unsettling and fearful.
Yeah.
And I think, it's, you mentioned that there's both this feeling of despair and anger and frustration, but also this feeling of hope and optimism, right? With the work that we're doing together, but also the work that you do outside of this. I know that you're really active in the community. I guess how are you kind of balancing that? I mean, you are kind of the go-to person here in Genesee County for immigration. And so I can only imagine the pressure that you're feeling right now. So how do you sort of balance that with
I feel like understanding my limitations is super helpful. In the sense that I can't do more than what I can do. And so I know that sounds obvious, but I do think the idea of overstretching, I'm not at that stage in life where I feel overwhelmed, but I know what I can do and what I can't do. So what I can do, I'll take on and I'll help with. But if I can't do it, then I've got to, send you someplace else. So I'm pretty comfortable, I think, with that at this point. But I'm also, I think my faith really guides me a lot. And so I'm not somebody, I think the world is not a good place. And I think that that is history. It's not a good place. When people are telling me, can you believe that, the Supreme Court 9-0, ruled that the administration had to turn that plane around, and they didn't do it, and now they've got to go back and remedy it, and they're not going to do it. This constitutional crisis, and I'm thinking, guys, it's not that long in our history that the Supreme Court authorized Japanese internment camps. So that's what I'm saying. I feel like the world isn't that amazing place that we would like it to be. But I feel like my role, and this is where I'm saying my faith guides me, that I'm personally going to be asked and held accountable for my actions and my participation. So whatever things I can do to try to make a difference, whether it works or not, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's back up a little bit then, and let's start with your story.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your upbringing here and your family and tell us a little bit about your story.
So my parents came in 1970 to Chicago. My father came to do his residency, and my eldest brother, who's now deceased, may God have mercy on him, was born in Chicago. And then he actually to take his exams. And then he was looking for a residency. And this is the funny thing is we're like, because people are like, how did you end up in Flint? Because him and a group of his friends that were medical school graduates from Syria went to Chicago to take their exams. None of them came to Michigan. And nobody had even, back then, people had heard about Flint, but nobody had known of Arabs that were, doing medicine in Flint at the time. Anyways, so what happened was he had applied for residency and he had gotten one in Chicago, but he comes from a very poor family, like malnutrition poor in the Daraa, south of Syria, and he's the eldest. And so he financially needed to be providing. And oddly enough, mid-year, Flint had an opening for a residency starting off season, because normally residencies start in the summer. Mm-hmm. This one was starting in January, and he was like 6 extra months of me making money, right? Like I can start 6 months early. So yeah, I'm just going to pick up and go to Flint. And so my parents came here to Flint, and yeah, we're 9 kids. I was born in Flint, and I'm going to say I was 6 years old, 5 or 6, when we moved to Davison, and then eventually my parents needed a bigger house because
9 kids.
Eventually we were 9 kids,
Yeah.
and so we moved out to Clio, a big house on I don't know, I think it's 30 acres of land, and so I finished elementary through high school at Clio.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was an adult, I guess.
Yeah. No, and the reason I wanted to bring us back to kind of the beginning of your story here is because you mentioned faith and how important it is to you. And I can make the connection back to your family, being one of the first families to immigrate to the city of Flint. And one of the first things that they did was establish
the Islamic Center.
The Islamic Center.
Yes.
And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I was a kid, so I can tell you what I remember versus like the stories that I know now. But
we might have to interview your dad.
Yeah. He's 87 now. Yeah. So, yeah. So I remember actually doing our Ramadan nightly prayers in our basement, because when from my recollection, when we were in Davison, there was another family. I don't know, the Haidars.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Haidars, we actually lived, like we were in walking distance. Our neighborhoods were back to back. So our backyard was like a few houses down to their backyard. Yeah. So I remember doing some prayers in our basement. Eventually as families came, expanded to Dyewood Center and then to Flint Islamic Center. Yeah, and our family was a part of that process along the way. Like I remember, driving to like youth group from Clio to, our weekly youth group. And, the Dyewood Center, it still exists, right? But the Dyewood Center initially was a cabana club. So I remember when they bought it and we went and it had an outdoor pool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. We used to go swimming in there. And then I think when it just got too many families, then it was like, this liability issue of like having a masjid with a swimming pool and whatever. But yeah, we would be like, in the summer, be like, hey, we were older, like I'm going to say high school, our friends, we would just like be like, hey guys, let's pack some sandwiches and go swimming. Eventually they killed that, but they filled it with cement. And then expanding to the Flint Islamic Center and now the school, and just crazy because my kids, you just saw Jenna's graduated from, Genesee Academy. So it's like, I guess I didn't get that far. I think that's the conclusion.
Yeah. So this started in your family's basement.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah.
And then at what point did it move to Dyewood?
I have to tell you, I can't
remember.
I can't remember that.
Okay. But the early days of this were...
early days were, I remember that we were in our house.
Yeah, and
in
people,
our basement.
How many people do you remember would come and...
I mean, the house wasn't that big, but it seemed full.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So elementary school, I'll be honest, I don't have those recollections. I just remember that it was something familiar when I was in a school that felt less familiar to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible just to kind of think about this like evolution of like starting somewhere like at
know.
home, then kind of growing into the Dyewood Masjid,
Yeah.
which is a little bit smaller, and then expanding into something like the Flint Islamic Center.
Well, and it's crazy because like my kids will be like, oh, there's a field trip to, whatever, I don't want to go. And I'm like, you guys don't even know what you have.
Yeah.
Like we grew up, it was like every activity, every opportunity, like, we wanted to, take. And there now, I mean, it's a good thing, but now there's so much programming that it's like they're not interested, that they can
pick
and choose more, but I don't remember that. Like for us, it was like, okay, there was like one activity a week. So of course we were going to be there.
Even just thinking about your story, like a lot of folks that I've spoken to just in my work with the AHC, they come to Flint because FIC is here. Because they want proximity to the masjid or to the school, right?
The school's actually a big draw. Because like when my daughter started, right, like she's 25 now, but when she started in first grade. And I mean, my sister Abrar, who's in her mid-30s, went to 8th grade because it used to be only up to 8th grade. And then, I don't know, maybe like 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, they opened a high school. So it's just crazy to see, like, I used to know every kid that were in my kids' class.
Yeah.
And now, like my son, I majority of the kids, I don't know who their families are. I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, So yeah, that's been a draw to the community is, I think, the school.
What has been your, maybe your role in that? Like what has been, have you had a role in sort of helping with that expansion at all? Or, what's been your connection to this like evolution period for the?
I feel like what I think my role has been is more on the political involvement and sort of getting, not on my own, again, my role meaning me as part of a team of others.
Yeah.
I think just getting the Muslim immigrant community, I want to be very clear because I'm not speaking for Black Muslim or, but for the Muslim immigrant community, getting them more involved in political participation, whether it's the voting, whether it's, reaching out to candidates, whether it's advocacy, that sort of thing.
I do think that is how you keep something like the masjid relevant and how you keep it something that is constantly changing and evolving and sustaining over time. And so I think a big part of that, definitely, like your role comes into it with the advocacy and the civic engagement piece.
I mean, it's funny because people complain. They're like, oh, geez, it's Eid time. So, like, politicians are walking through the door, electeds or potential candidates walking through the door. Hey, happy Eid, everybody. I was like, oh, please, for the love of God, like, it's Eid, we don't want to hear. And I'm just like, it's a good thing, folks. I mean, it is, it can be annoying. But it's a good thing. It means that they know your vote matters.
Yeah.
So make it matter.
And this is something that you've really focused on for a long time.
Yeah.
I know, I can even see it in the way that you're saying it now, the passion that you're saying it with. You've really, really tried very hard to get our community activated or even reactivated. Because I think that thinking about things historically, like there were periods of time where our communities were more involved in organizing and civic engagement. And then, of course, you have the post 9/11 era where there was more fear and let's back off, let's not be active, let's not be political, And so now we're in another period now where things are feeling, again, similar of like maybe we shouldn't be politically active, maybe we should take a back seat.
I think that it's not the same level as 9/11, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that the fear from the community was real because the roots, the political roots, and I say political because a lot of your sort of appreciation as a community when it comes to policy being made is through politicians. So I think the political roots were maybe more superficial. Then I feel like now there is, but it's the young folks, absolutely. It's the young folks, and as it should be.
Yeah.
As it should be. Young people change the world. It's Vietnam. It was the young people on their campuses that were protesting, that in the streets, I'm not saying that us old heads don't have a role to play.
Oh, certainly do.
But the change is definitely from young people. And look, I used to be more critical to me personally, I used to be more like, I don't understand why you can't see that your vote matters, that you're, even if you don't like this person represents you in your district. Like, you should still meet with them and tell them what you think. And I used to be more frustrated with it. And then as I got older, I was just like, the immigrants from my community, majority come from dictatorships. So there's no instilling of the importance of it, the value of it. And on the contrary, they had seen times where you could go and do things a little bit, right? Like, you could speak out a little bit more. But then when there was a crackdown, the crackdown would come hard. So the stakes were much higher for them. So I think adjusting that really did need, one or two generations.
Yeah.
So, I see that in my girls. Like, my girls, they're like the opposite. And I'm like, could you just take some safety precautions?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not telling you don't do it, but just can you be a little more careful about it? So it's like, it takes a couple of generations, but to me, that's a good trajectory.
Yeah, and I will say I don't want to at all come across that I'm dismissing the work of our the older generation,
not.
because
Yeah.
I think even the idea behind creating an institution like FIC is inherently about bringing people together and creating a space, a platform for them to feel connected to each other, but also to work together and to think about what are the things that we care about, what are the things that we want to change in our communities, what are ways that we can empower each other to pursue different paths, whether it's political or otherwise.
I never got the impression that it was to create an artificial bubble, right? My parents, I think, and I don't think that a lot of immigrant parents at that time, like that stage where they were, coming in, were very much like, you're Muslim, you're American, you're Arab, and all of those are fine. None of them, they don't contradict each other. And that was something that I don't think that other immigrant families around me, a lot of them didn't have that, It was like, no, that's not in our culture. And, we didn't really experience that. I'm saying in my family. So I feel like it was sort of the spirit of the establishment was, okay, we're in America, we're raising our families in America, this is now our children's future, and we're Muslim. We want them to be able to hold on to their Muslim culture and, their faith, and then, also be American. Yeah. And let's find a way to do that.
Yeah. And it created opportunities for people to come together and to be able to develop the kinds of programming that you're talking about, but then also to be a space for this type of advocacy and civic engagement that you care deeply about.
Yeah. You know what's interesting though? I actually think the thing that I'm struggling with more now is young people in the political engagement. In this sense, okay, I think that always was the case. But in terms voting and meeting your representatives and speaking to your representatives, young people are more cynical. So they're good for the protests, which are important, like the big actions. But I find that they haven't accepted the system. They see it, but they're like, we don't want any part of this system. And so I feel like it's constantly a struggle. It's like you're trying to get the actual immigrants, right, whether they're old or young, to understand this system, and then you're trying to get young folks, engaged.
That's an interesting framing and one that I almost feel a little compelled to push back against.
Okay.
And I think it's because you described it as cynicism. I describe it as a
Realism.
rejection of something that does not represent us. When when I talk to young people, a lot of the things that they're telling us is that this system doesn't work for us. Why do we keep buying into it? Why do we keep investing in it? Why don't we believe in something better or fight for something better? And
I don't think it works. The system it works for a very specific set of people. the whole, to me, campaign finance reform is the number one thing that needs to happen to remove corruption from our elections. I mean, that's been, to me, the disgusting thing, going all the way to PACs. And here I am participating.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the difference, is that young people are like, this is disgusting, I'm not going to participate. And then there's me, I'm like, this is disgusting, God damn it, I'm writing the check.
I think it's just a difference of strategy, right?
Yeah.
And something I will say is that something I love about the work that we do now at the AHC and being able to work so closely with young people who are super excited and eager to partake in like advocacy is that they do want to imagine something better. And
let them.
Yeah.
And let them.
And I think that it is. I think that this is something that we want to have in conversation with folks like you, right, and folks like other members of our community who have been part of these spaces for a long time, who understand how these systems work, and sort of think about, okay, how can we work together? How can we build coalitions together that empower us, and inspire us to think about things
outside the box,
fight for things that we know we deserve, but also using the guidance and the insight from people who have been part of these spaces for a very long time and who understand them really, really well.
I always tell people, look, you need inside and outside.
Yeah.
Right? You need pressure from the inside. Change comes from inside and change comes from outside.
Yeah.
And you just need to be both inside and outside. Like, not you as an individual, but you as a community need to be inside and outside. So, I'm game with, you know, if you want to be outside for now, that's great. Don't forget, we do need some people on the inside.
Yeah.
So,
Well, okay, let's go back to kind of your story and stuff. So you you finished up school here, and then you pursued your bachelor's degree at the University of Michigan, I believe, right?
I started at Flint and then transferred to
Ann Arbor.
And I started at Flint because my mother was like, we're going to send our daughter, because my three, I'm number four. My three older siblings did not go away for school. So my mom was like, we're going to send our daughter to go live by herself in another city, an hour away. Like, that's insane. I was like, please.
That checks out a lot of our experiences.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was like, geez, like, we're not going to we don't know who, I was still, because, this is the days, and I know I always say this, but, Microsoft 95 was the first Microsoft version, 1995, right? I graduated high school in 93. So this was still the time where if I'm going to leave someplace, I have to call home to let them know I'm leaving. So that way, if something happens to me in the 30-minute drive home, right? Because you don't want to be stranded on the side. And I don't know what they would do if I didn't. But, that was sort of the era. So you're going to go live someplace else? But anyway, so it took me a year to convince them.
It's the organizing spirit showing up in you.
So that's how, and then I went,
So did 1 year in Flint, moved to Ann Arbor, finished up your degree there, and your degree was in?
History and political science.
So you finished up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
You finished up your bachelor's degree. At what point during your time in undergrad did you realize, I want to pursue law school?
So I came from parents who the sciences were all they knew. Like, I look back at it now, but and recognize that they lived in a society where the sciences guaranteed you a job, right? Anything creative was hacky faulty. Like, it was just, So I initially was like, okay, nobody was doing medicine. And I was like, I can't, I was good at science. And then they were like, you're good at science. But I was like, the idea of medical school residency, like, it'll kill me. And so then I decided, fine, I'll do dentistry. It was like, okay, fine, I'll do dentistry. And then I took my first semester at U of M Flint in the sciences. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to do this. Of course, again, I didn't let my parents know that right away. And there was an elective political science class. And I was just hooked.
That's the same story, by the way.
Is it?
I started off like pre-dental.
See? What is it?
I don't know. I
What
was just
is
like,
it?
I don't want to do medical school at all.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, they convinced me. They're like, try dentistry.
Yeah.
So
See?
then I did that.
See?
And
then I'm sure, if I had said I don't want dentistry and I didn't have anything else, I know that pharmacy was coming next.
Oh, yeah.
As the
So you had to-
recommendation. So I had to cut that off, head that off at the pass and be like, no, I already, know what I'm doing.
So you took your poli-sci class. You loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. And then I was like, I feel like I could do something with this. And I wasn't sure what, but I was like, why not be a lawyer? So that's literally, it was just like, it wasn't that I had some great aspirations to do something amazing. I was like, this is interesting. I feel like I could do law.
Okay.
That's literally what it was.
Yeah. And your family of 9
Yeah.
are the majority, you'd say, in STEM, medical field or otherwise?
Business, education, policy.
Oh, so a good mix. Okay.
Good mix, yeah. No, I only have three are in STEM.
Were they older?
No,
They were
the 3 younger.
the 3 younger.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So then it wasn't so much that you were being compared to older siblings.
No.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, they weren't, I have some friends that had tears and whatever about the pressure they were getting from their parents about, career path. And I didn't have that.
Yeah.
They were just do well.
Yeah.
You
So you came to them, you said, I want to do law school.
Yeah, I came to them and said, I'm switching to pre-law.
Pre-law.
And my mom was like, what is that? And I was like, I don't really know. I don't really know. She's like, what, defending criminals? I'm like, maybe.
Uh-huh.
Of course, now, if people say that to me, I'll be like, alleged criminals. Okay.
right.
But back then I was like, I don't know. So, I couldn't really explain it other than this is interesting to me. And again, I didn't get a lot of pushback, but in that conversation, I was like, well, what does interesting do?
Yeah.
The idea that you pursue something that's interesting to you was not on their parenting list, right? It was, you did something that you could survive, you could make a living.
Be successful. And
Be
support
successful.
A family.
Right, support a family and all of that, right? You stand on your own 2 feet. And so interesting wasn't a great selling point, but it was one conversation, and there was no yelling, and there wasn't a lot of pressure. I have to give that to them.
Yeah.
They were like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you go on this path to pursuing law school.
Yeah.
And you end up in Canada.
Yeah, my husband's Canadian.
Okay.
So, and he was doing his neurosurgery residency. So we finished there. So I did law school in Canada, and they have a 1-year residency program that's mandatory for lawyers, which I think should be the case here. Yeah, so you finish 3 years, and you can't take your bar until you've done this 1-year residency. I had my daughter right after the year of residency, so I didn't work in Canada. And so then we ended up moving back.
So you finish up law school in Canada, and you come back to the U.S. What happens after that?
Do my master's, and then I had 2 kids, 2 little girls at the time. So I was like, what am I going to do? My husband was starting his practice. Anyways, I just decided to start up my own practice. I was getting my foot in, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then literally I saw an advertisement for American Immigration Lawyers Association have a week-long Fundamentals of Immigration class and course as part of the annual conference. It's literally 9 to 5 for a full week. And I was like, I'm doing it. So that's how I ended up getting into immigration. I knew the market was wide open, right? So it wasn't going to take that much for me to get something going, and it would be something that was interesting.
I have to kind of think about just the work that you do even just outside of immigration.
Yeah.
Because of course immigration law is your day-to-day work.
Right.
But outside outside of work, you're doing all kinds of things in the community that are tied to advocacy and civic engagement and all these other things. So part of me wants to think that perhaps you are finding a gap maybe in your own work that you're sort of trying to address outside of it. Do you think that that's accurate?
Well, I think that it's interesting because my work is specifically about helping immigrants, helping foreign nationals either come or stay in the U.S. But I would be, I think, it would be disingenuous to not say that my immigrant background is a big part of what led me to that, right? Like, you know, what you look at the immigration laws, you know, the Chinese Exclusion Act, that, you know, if anybody from the East was not allowed to come, it's something that I really harp on with the Middle Eastern and Southeast Asian immigrant community, that, you know, when was the Immigration and Nationality Act passed? And they're like 1965. I'm like, what is the coincidence of it being 1965? It was the civil rights movement. Our black sisters and brothers, really, they did fought for this. And part of the fighting was, even in immigration, we don't want you to be like, brown and black is bad and white is good, right? Like, you've got to level the playing field for immigration. So I just felt like in my dealings with immigrants, you get to deal with them in a different way when you're an attorney. I got to see the fear and the insecurities.
And understand it.
That's what I'm saying. And I also got to see the resilience. So yeah, I did see where I feel like now I didn't do it on purpose, but I do think that I can see now where I was like, okay, these are things that we need to provide in our community, because I get these clients and they've got XYZ that, you know, social services.
So those needs outside of the scope of just applying, right?
Of
just applying and getting here, right?
Right.
Because then you get here and it's like,
Right.
well, where are the resources to support me once I'm here?
Right.
You know, and so, and I know you've played an active role in helping with that, and you serve on a number of boards and commissions, and you're part of work here locally, but also at the state level, and so you're kind of tackling a lot of these things from different angles, and I'm just curious, like, what is the motivation behind that for you? Like, why pursue all of these things outside?
So I genuinely believe that, you know, if given the opportunity, people will better their communities, okay? In the sense that when you are not in the defensive mode, and when you are not struggling to have the basics in life, struggling with your identity, struggling with your dignity, then you're in a position to be relaxed and to look around and say, what else can be done? So I guess I felt, and I continue to feel, that as an immigrant community, when you are empowered, then you're good, that's good for society, but it also means that now you have the ability to look outside, right? And say, okay, what else can I get involved in? What else can I help? And so you can't do that if you don't have that sense of self-worth and confidence on the inside. So yeah, I just believe that as a community, whatever that community looks like, or whatever your community looks like, needs to have that in order, obviously, one, to, you know, just people to live with dignity, but in order to then be able to sort of spread goodness outward.
Yeah.
Everything's local, right?
Yeah. And what a great model for people to have.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, to be able to see the work that you do at the scale that you do, both locally, statewide, and also even nationally, right? Like, I think it is inspiring and something that motivates people in our community to see, like, not only the impact that it can have, but also that it is something we can do, right? And I think, like, right. You know, a lot of us have that experience of our parents kind of seeing very particular fields as fields of opportunity, right? And now we look at folks in other spaces, in the nonprofit spaces, right? And the art spaces and the social sciences, and we see that there are opportunities for us to excel in so many different fields. It takes one person sometimes to kind of help highlight that and shine a light on that. It is certainly inspiring and something that motivates young Muslim and Arab women in our community.
I appreciate that.
We talked a little bit about how this landscape of immigration law has changed drastically. You've told me before in conversation that your work used to be and perhaps still is mainly about, you know, administrative law, helping people fill out their applications and submitting them and kind of walking them through that phase of the process. And now it's a little bit different. We're in a different time, and things are rapidly changing. Federal policies are changing every single day. What has that felt like? What has it felt like to navigate that and to feel like your work has kind of just from one day completely changed into something different.
So I don't think it's uncharted waters. I think I would start by saying that. I don't know if if you look at some of the programs, this registration. So, for example, now President Trump has, all foreign nationals have to register with the government, and they have to register within 30 days or else they're in violation, whatever those. Well, we had the NSEERS program post 9/11, which men from certain countries had to register with this program. We have, there have been, these programs that I can't remember what it was called, but the one where, again, this is like years after, I'm going to say probably came to light, don't quote me on this, but like 2010. So to me, in my life, that's not extremely long ago, but it was like a program where you parked citizenship applications for people from certain countries. And it was like a policy, right? So I don't think that we're in uncharted waters. I just think that it's a lot at once, So I just think the chaos, and I do believe politically that that's intentional.
Right.
The creation of chaos and cruelty,
and how much damage has been caused.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're in the Flint community, we're in Genesee County more broadly, AHC, and I'm sure we're seeing the impact day to day of how people are navigating.
Well, the fear. Look, this is what I'm saying. It's the cruelty. It's the fear. When you hear that there are schools in the Detroit area where Hispanic community families don't want to send their kids to school for fear of, ICE raid at the local elementary school, like that is what is intended.
Yeah.
That's what it's intended to do. So even if people haven't actually experienced a negative consequence, the fact that they are now living in fear of an insane consequence is what we're, and how do you handle that?
Exactly.
Like that to me is like, what are you doing? Like, how do you, it's nothing that I can change.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't give false reassurances either. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle fear that exists, that is outsized from the actual potential harm for certain families?
Yeah. And it's a difficult thing for us, even in our own roles, to have to feel like we can stay motivated, and to feel like we can offer the kind of support that we want to offer, and offer the types of reassurances that we really want to desperately offer.
We have to be the ones that keep going, because if who's left? If it's not you and me, then who is it?
Yeah. And I on that point, I think that you didn't hesitate to act, right? I mean, I remember you and I having a call, not even after the inauguration day, and we were talking about, okay, what are we going to do? How can we bring people together? Mm-hmm. And so then we talked about launching the Flint Alliance for Immigrant Rights, which
you did very well, thank you.
Which is a coalition that we're now both a part of, and something that you are helping provide this context around what's happening at the federal level, and interpreting it for people here locally to understand what is the impact, what do we need to worry about, and how can we inform people about those things. That this isn't just one area, right? That this is multifaceted. That the immigrant family that is struggling to understand what their status is going to look like is also worried about their healthcare access, and is also worried about sending their children to school, and all of these things. And so being able to look at things from that lens is really helpful for our partners here in Flint to see that they all have a role to play.
And it's like you said, it's like you're saying that for people who have status. Then we looked and we always thought green card holders were safe. Well, that didn't turn out to be safe. And then you're hearing the chirping about denaturalization.
Yeah.
So then you've got immigrant communities who are Americans who are now and as we've seen, Americans have been swept up in these ICE raids because they're brown.
Yeah.
So it's like you're saying multifaceted. It's like just it's layers, right?
Thinking about the coalition and thinking about the ways in which you've been called back into action to kind of have a role in this work, and it feels like an opportunity for us to really say those things, to say we have to be in this together. We have to work together. This isn't just immigrant communities fighting for ourselves. We have to collectively be doing this because it impacts all of us. And I think we're starting to see people realize that with the cases that we're seeing about students being arrested and the way that Palestinian organizing is being targeted and how people can be put in detention simply for making their views heard on that.
So, you know, that's the thing is I don't separate the immigrant rights from our civil rights generally,
and
it's not a separate conversation. So when we talk about like the Flint ACLU chapter and the cases that we took on, and again I was one of a team of local attorneys, but they're all civil rights cases. So whether it's police raided and arrested and cavity searched everybody at a club under the guise of it being a drug house, well, that's a total violation of your civil rights. And then more recently, the Flint water crisis, right? Like there was a few Flint residents who went to a public meeting and were forced, because it was held in a church, were forced to take off their hats to attend the meeting. Like those things are not separate to me. Like basically whenever government can take more than what it's entitled to, it will. And that is, I think, just our job as citizens in general, and everybody, is to push back. Is to push back and say, yeah, I don't think so. You're not entitled to that. Like it's like, they're coming at you with their shields and you just got to keep putting the pressure on that shield to say, yeah, this is as far as you can go, and we're not going to let you go to the best of our ability. We're not going to let you go any further. So I just think immigration is just one of those civil rights issues.
Right. And I appreciate the ways in which you make those connections, whether it's in the Know Your Rights workshops that you're hosting or in the spaces that you're in with ACLU and these other, committees and groups that you're a part of, that you are making those connections and that you are talking about things that have otherwise been left out of this conversation, especially the one on, Palestinian organizers being targeted. And I think that's so powerful and something that I think we're finally starting to see people get worried and concerned and frustrated even, that like, how can this happen, right? Like how can people who are simply exercising their right to free speech be all of a sudden be put in detention?
And it's just it's in the middle of an active genocide, right? And ethnic cleansing has been happening since 1948, so we know that, but the active genocide that the whole world's watching, so it's just louder, and quite frankly there's a lot more support now. So now we're seeing it, and we're seeing it in all of these university students who, one of the students that we represented, so I represented students in the disciplinary proceedings at University of Michigan for their participation in these protests, right. And they were charged with like trespass and dumb shit like that, dumb stuff like that, and sorry, and I remember telling them that when I was at U of M, we did die-ins.
Yeah.
We did mock checkpoints. So I was telling them that the reason why you sat in the president's office and were singing songs put you guys in these proceedings, of whether it was criminal or disciplinary proceedings, is because they're afraid of you now. You're making that impact now. So, and then one of the students said to me, 30 years ago, I just found out about Palestine 6 months ago. And I thought, this is the change.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't know it existed. And this is a kid that was now in disciplinary and criminal proceedings.
Yeah, your words are reminding me of a very recent quote that I read from Mahmoud Khalil, from the first letter that he sent from detention, and I'm paraphrasing.
That was a powerful letter.
It was very powerful. I'm here because it's working. He's telling people from detention, not knowing what his future is like, I'm here because it's working, because we are changing the public. Even just to quote his most recent letter, he says something in that letter where he says, we need more people to be courageous.
That's a shift that I actually had to make, because my job as a lawyer is to tell you the worst case scenario and to prepare you for the worst case scenario. So if there's anything that involves risk, I'm going to tell you, why would you do that?
Yeah.
That's my job. But now I feel like, and what I've learned from movement lawyers, right? and the National Lawyers Guild, so that the attorneys really mainly in Michigan are volunteers with the National Lawyers Guild that are really taking this on, and National NLG's been doing this for decades. They're movement lawyers, and so I'm learning from them how they do. Instead of they don't tell them. They will give them worst case scenario, but they will sit down and do a risk assessment with you. Put together a plan. What is your plan in the event that this happens? So it's not stop what you're doing. It's maybe this one is too bad, so you might want to step back from that. But yeah, there are risks, and the risks are worth taking. It's as a professional, that's a switch that I'm having to learn now. I look at these students and I'm like, they are like, I never risked anything. I didn't risk anything. Yeah. I'm not going to get fired from my job. I'm not going to lose clients. I'm not going to lose my house. Nothing's going to happen to me, right? Like, my risks are nothing. You look at these students who, some of them are now, they've got marks on their disciplinary records. What does that mean for them entering the job market? What does that mean for them applying for grad schools? What does that mean for them? Some of them banned from campus. You can't finish your degrees. Like these, and they're not stopping. So when people say, oh, the environment is negative and, feeling negative energy, I'm like, folks, I am living life as an older professional. Whatever I'm doing, I have no risk. I look at those kids and they are kids. I look at those kids and I say, that's where I draw my energy from. That's where I draw my inspiration from, is, kids that are just risking their futures because they believe in it. How is that not inspiring?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how is that not, like, make you think, well, of course I have to do more?
Yeah. And I think this brings us back to the beginning of our conversation when I asked you how you're doing, and you said you're doing well and that people are inspiring you.
Absolutely.
Around you. So I guess
it's a movement. And to be able to get involved and in something, even in any small way, to me is a privilege.
Yeah. I guess I want us to end on this note then and just ask you, like, what gives you hope? What's going to keep giving you hope as we continue to navigate this?
I'm always hopeful. Our country, we go through some terrible times, and even in those terrible times, look, I don't know what we're going to get. I don't know if we're going to get through. I don't know. I don't know how much worse it's going to get. But in those terrible times, and I always am inspired by individuals who are willing to do the right thing. And so I feel like I'm part of a team. It's not, like, I didn't do anything on my own, but as a part of a team, whether it was with the ACLU, whether it's with the NLG, whether it's with the Women's Commission, whether it's, in the Muslim community, always a part of a team, and I feed off of that energy. So even when things are difficult, to be in the trenches with other people fighting the fight with you, to me, it's fantastic.
Well, Muna, thank you so much for your time today and for your candor and your passion and for all the work that you continue to do to
Thanks
inspire
for having
us.
me.
Thank you.
Thanks.